The blazing sun beat down on the cracked, parched soil of Jacob Carter's raspberry farm. The air hung thick with heat, the sweet aroma of ripened berries clinging to every breath he took. He had only been on the farm for a short while, having inherited it from his late grandfather, but the quiet solitude of rural Montana was already starting to wear on him. So, when he glanced out his window and spotted two massive craters gouged into the middle of his field, his blood ran hot. "What in the world?" he muttered, yanking on his cap before striding toward the destruction. He stomped through the crushed raspberry bushes, the scent of bruised fruit filling the air as his boots pressed into the disturbed dirt. Then he stopped dead in his tracks, his brain struggling to process what he was seeing. Two massive, metallic pods, still smoking, doors flung wide open. The blackened metal gleamed under the sun, the heat around them distorting the air as if they had just fallen from the sky. Jacob's pulse pounded in his ears. This wasn't some careless farmer wrecking his land. This was something much worse. And that's when he saw them. Two figures, not human. Standing amid the ruined raspberry rows were two strikingly tall women with glowing violet skin, silvery white hair cascading past their shoulders, and pointed ears that twitched slightly in the warm breeze. Their golden eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow. But then Jacob noticed something even more bizarre. They were barely clothed. The taller of the two, who seemed to be in charge, gasped when she realized he was staring. A deep indigo blush spread across her cheeks as she fumbled with a sleek device strapped to her wrist. "Human," she barked, her voice firm but laced with unease. "Explain yourself at once." Jacob blinked, unsure whether to laugh or panic. "I should be the one asking that." The second woman, standing slightly behind the leader, huffed and crossed her arms. "Selah, I told you we should have scanned the area first." Selah, a fittingly alien name, looked away, clearly flustered. Her fingers grazed the side of her hip, a nervous tick, and Jacob couldn't help but notice that, aside from the glowing skin and the unnatural eyes, they had very human-like curves. Selah hesitated before clearing her throat. "Human, this is no trivial matter. In our culture, if a man sees an unmarried woman in such an indecent state, he is automatically bound to her in matrimony." Jacob's brain short-circuited. "What?" The second alien, Vena, exhaled sharply, clearly unimpressed. "It means human congratulations. You're now our husband." A chill trickled down Jacob's spine. Either the heat was getting to him, or he just walked into the most surreal situation of his life. "You're kidding," he said slowly, scanning their faces for any sign of humor. Selah's blush deepened. "We do not jest about such matters." Jacob ran a hand through his hair, letting the absurdity of it all sink in. He glanced at the two women again. They were stunning, otherworldly, and, somehow, completely serious. A slow grin crept onto his face. Maybe life in the middle of nowhere wasn't so dull after all. "Well," he shrugged, "who am I to argue with tradition?" Selah's eyes widened. "You accept?" Jacob smirked. "Sure. Why not?" He barely had time to process what happened next. Selah lunged forward, grabbing him by the collar and pulling him into a deep kiss. At the same time, Vena wrapped her cool fingers around his wrist, her touch sending an electric sensation up his arm. Their closeness was overwhelming. The scent of something sweet yet metallic filled his nose. Selah's lips were warm, while Vena's fingertips traced the skin in a way that sent a shiver down his spine. Jacob barely managed to chuckle between kisses. "You two move fast." Selah finally pulled back, breathless, her golden eyes half-lidded with something Jacob couldn't quite decipher. "We don't have time to waste," she murmured. Vena smirked. "We're in heat." Jacob froze. Oh. Vena laughed, clearly amused by his realization. "Now you understand, human. Marriage requires immediate consummation." Selah's fingers tangled in his shirt again, but just as Jacob was about to surrender to the insanity of his day, she suddenly stopped. Her expression shifted. Eyes widened. Hands trembled. Something was wrong. Wait, Sayla whispered, her voice laced with dread. I forgot something important. Jacob, still catching his breath, frowned. What? Sayla swallowed hard. Our previous partners. Jacob felt his stomach drop. You're what now? Vena bit her lip, looking away. Technically, we were already married. Jacob took a slow step back. Okay, and when exactly were you planning to mention this? It doesn't matter anymore, Sayla said quickly, because by our law, we belong to you now. That's not the part that concerns me, Jacob muttered, suddenly uneasy. Who exactly were you married to? Sayla's gaze darted skyward. A streak of ominous red light cut through the clouds, growing larger by the second. The ground vibrated beneath their feet, a deep hum filling the air. Our ex-husbands, she whispered. Jacob clenched his jaw. And let me guess, they're not exactly the forgiving type. Vena gave him a pointed look. They're elite warriors of the Galactic Order. Jacob closed his eyes and exhaled sharply. Fantastic. His day had gone from ordinary to absolutely insane. Not only was he now the accidental husband of 2 alien women, but it seemed he had just inherited a pair of lethal, vengeful exes. And judging by the fireball of energy hurtling toward them, his problems were only beginning. Sayla bit her lip, guilt flickering in her glowing eyes. Jacob, if our former partners see us with you, they'll invoke the honor code. There's only one outcome. Vena smirked. You die? Jacob exhaled sharply. And you didn't think to mention this before we... Oh, I don't know. Acted married. Sayla flushed. We were in heat. We weren't thinking. A deep hum filled the air. Jacob looked up, heart pounding as a massive spaceship tore through the clouds. Its sleek, black hull gleamed under the Montana sun, energy cannons pulsing ominously. This is not happening, he muttered. A blue energy beam struck the field beside them with a deafening boom. The ground trembled as a portal of crackling light formed. From it, 2 figures emerged. The ex-husbands, towering and broad-shouldered. The alien warrior stepped forward, metallic armor glinting. Plasma spears crackled in their grip, their eyes burning with rage. Sayla, Vena, one growled. Traitors. Jacob raised his hands. Okay, how about we talk before things get stabby? The second warrior, deep indigo skin darkening, pointed his spear. You touched our mates. That means war. Jacob blinked. War? Seriously? Sayla stepped forward. We chose Jacob. That's our new tradition. If you refuse to accept it, fight us. Vena grinned. You're warriors. If you lose, he keeps us. Jacob's stomach dropped. Wait. Who said I'm fighting? Sayla cupped his face. You have to. If you don't, they'll kill you anyway. Jacob let out a slow breath. He glanced down, grabbed a rock, and hurled it at the first warrior's head. All right, let's do this. The battle began. The warriors charged, plasma spears slicing through the air. Jacob dove, dirt flying as he rolled between raspberry bushes. Heat seared past him. Shit! He scrambled to his feet, grabbing the only weapon nearby, a rusted shovel. Great. 2 trained killers versus a farmer with gardening tools. The first warrior lunged, swinging his spear. Jacob barely dodged, spinning the shovel and slamming it into the alien's chest. Crack! The warrior staggered but didn't fall. He snarled, spear flashing toward Jacob's head. Jacob, move! Sayla shouted. He ducked just in time, heart pounding. He needed an opening. Vena provided one. With a feral grin, she leaped onto the warrior, sinking her sharp teeth into his shoulder. The alien roared, trying to shake her off. Sayla was already in motion. She fired a blast of energy at her other ex-husband, sending him flying. Jacob didn't hesitate. Grabbing a sack of fertilizer, he ripped it open and flung the powder into the warrior's glowing eyes. Enjoy that, asshole. The alien howled in pain. Jacob swung the shovel with all his strength, smashing it into the warrior's jaw. The massive alien hit the ground unconscious. The second warrior, recovering from the blast, took one look at the scene, scowled, and pressed a button on his wrist. This isn't over. A beam of light engulfed him, teleporting him back to the warship. Seconds later, the ship roared upward, vanishing into the sky. Jacob stood there, breathless. Holy shit. He turned to Sayla and Vena. You two got me into one hell of a mess. Sayla smiled. But you won. And now, you are truly our husband. Vena trailed a cool finger down his chest. You proved yourself human. You're worthy of us. Jacob's pulse still raced, but their intense, lingering stares told him the night wasn't over. Sayla pulled him into a slow, heated kiss, her lips sending electric shivers down his spine. Vena pressed against him from behind, her breath warm against his neck. Jacob, Sayla murmured, you belong to us now. Jacob grinned, wrapping his arms around them both. Guess I do. The stars twinkled overhead, the battlefield fading into silence. Between the fields and the infinite sky above, Jacob Carter celebrated his victory in the most intimate way possible. He chuckled against Sayla's lips, the weight of the day melting away. What a goddamn life, he whispered before surrendering to their warmth.